feel like I look like a ballerina. Hello everybody and welcome back to A Royal Reader. My name is Cece and today I'm going to be doing my July and August wrap up. So I had previously already filmed my July wrap up, but unfortunately I didn't like how it turned out and I took too long to even think about editing it and never uploaded it, and it's now September. So I just thought it would probably be a better idea for me to combine the two and do an August and a July wrap up. So let's get into it. I have a lot of books to talk about and it's going to be a crazy time basically. So July I actually read quite a few books, not going to lie. I'm looking at my core pile sheet, which is the rating system I use. It's created by G from Book Roast. I will leave her video down below so you can go and watch that and discover the amazingness of core pile. But if I just count this correctly, 7. So I read 7 books. And I also had 2 DNFs on top of that. So altogether I sort of read 9 books, but not really. The first book that I read in July was on Scribd. Actually, a lot of these books that I read for July are on Scribd. I'm just having a good old time on Scribd, actually. And so the first book that I read was The Strange Case of the Alchemist's Daughter by Theodora Ghost. I'm really sorry if I pronounced that wrong. So this book we follow our main character, who is the daughter of Dr. Jekyll. She has recently lost her mother and therefore is now struggling to be able to pay for a lot of things. There is a announcement made about the disappearance of a Mr. Hyde. And if anybody knows about his whereabouts or has any information whatsoever, they will be given a sum of money as a reward. Our main character decides that she's going to try her best to find her father's old friend, who is a murderer now, and get the money from it basically. She comes across Dr. Holmes and... no, he's not a doctor. I keep doing that. So she comes across Dr. Watson and Sherlock Holmes and they help her along with this investigation. She also discovers that she ends up having a half-sister to the Mr. Hyde. So in this book they also discover that there are a bunch of other girls who have been experimented on by their fathers and just sort of enjoyed this one. It is a very long book for a very small premises, if I do say so. It's almost about 400-500 pages, I think. Very long-winded, but I did enjoy the writing style. In this, the characters are sort of retelling the story, and so every so often they will butt in with their own anecdotes about what happened. So I really enjoyed that. I just think that the story was a little bit too long. The next book that I read was one that I actually have on my own shelves, which was really good. I read The City of Brass by S.A. Chakraborty. This was a fantastic read. So in this we have our main character Nari, who is able to sense people's ailments. She can see what's sort of wrong with them health-wise, and she sort of teams up with this apothecary guy to con people out of more money. One day when she's performing a ritual to heal someone, she somehow summons a Jinn warrior that ends up taking her to the City of Brass, where we have our second main character, Ali, who is the prince, and he has discovered that there is a sort of coup happening. This was a really interesting read. I really enjoyed my time with it. I ended up picking up the audiobook, which was on Scribd, because I was really struggling with some of the pronunciations and the words involved in this. I only realized about quarter of the way through that there's actually a glossary in the back, so that's my own fault, but I definitely enjoyed reading it through the audiobook. And I find that when I'm struggling to try and figure out how to pronounce a word, it really takes me out of the story. So I really enjoyed picking up the audiobook and I definitely recommend it. Gave this one, I think, a 3 out of 5 stars. The next book that I had on the TBR was Girls of Paper and Fire by Natasha Yang. Unfortunately, this was a DNF for me. I really just could not care about this book. We have our main character, I can't even remember her name anymore. She lives in this world where there is a sort of caste system where there is like full-blooded demons and then half-blooded demons and then humans, and somehow she gets involved with becoming a paper girl for the king, the demon king, which is essentially kind of like his concubines, I guess you could say. And in doing so, she ends up falling in love with one of the other paper girls. I don't know too much more than that. I read about 175 pages in and just really could not be bothered. I was really bored the entire time, so I decided to DNF this book. The next book that I picked up was A Song of Wraiths and Ruin by Roseanne A. Brown. I really enjoyed this story. This one we follow two main characters. Our first one is Karina, who is the princess of this land. She has just recently lost her mother and is desperate to try and get her back because she does not think she is ready to be able to rule as queen. So she discovers that there is dark magic where she can perform the ritual and bring her mother back from the dead. Fortunately for this, she needs to have the heart of a king for the ritual, so she decides that when the festival that is taking place has the reigning champion of the festival, the winning prize is going to be her hand in marriage. Then we go to our second main character, Malik, who is a very poor, not orphan boy, but very poor boy who has been trying to gain access into the kingdom, I guess you could say, with his two sisters, and somehow a djinn ends up kidnapping his youngest sister as a way of entry into the kingdom, and in order to get her back, the djinn tells Malik that he has to kill the princess. Malik enters into the festival and decides to compete in the competitions to try and win her hand in marriage, and thus this book was really good. I picked up the audiobook as well because I was struggling with the pronunciation of certain words and things like that. I really enjoyed it. They have a two actors for the audiobook, so I really enjoyed that. It was just really good, and I'm excited for the next book. I think I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not entirely too sure. Yeah, I did. I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. So next up was just a random book that I have been making my way through. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that I've been reading this series for a little while now. And that is The Belgrade by David Eddings. This is the second book in the series called The Queen of Sorcery. This is a very, I don't want to say well-known fantasy series, but it is a very old fantasy series, reminiscent to that of Robin Hobb and Lord of the Rings and things like that. It is a sort of traveling, large cast of characters, companion, traveling, journey, quest thing. So in the first book we have our main character Garion, who has been living on a farm for his entire life with his aunt Pole. He discovers that there is this old man that comes ever so often to the farm, and somehow his aunt knows this old man, and then he discovers that the old man is not exactly what he seems, and he is a sorcerer or a wizard or something along those lines. The sorcerer tells him that they have to go on a quest to find this missing orb before all hell breaks loose and the world goes into complete and utter ruin and chaos. That's the basic premises of this book, of the first book anyway. This one carries on directly from the end of the first book. I listened to this mainly through audiobook and I really enjoy it. The narrator for this book is really, really good. He has a very nice old man voice that sounds really, really weird, but the way that he speaks as the old man in this, it reminds me so much of like Gandalf, and I really enjoy that. So I gave this one a 4 out of 5 stars. So the next book that I read was a sort of half DNF, half not DNF, and that is Vengeful by V.E. Schwab. I've made it through halfway of this and I just started to feel myself getting into a bit of a slump, so I decided to stop this. I will eventually come back to this later. This is not a full utter DNF. This is just a temporary DNF. Yes, this is a second book in a series by the Schwab. The first one is called Vicious, and we have our main characters Eli and Victor Vale. They are two best friends who are studying at university. They are working on a thesis about the EOs, which is extraordinaries, who are people who have somehow managed to gain supernatural abilities after having a near-death experience. Victor and Eli end up doing a couple of experiments, and something happens that forces them to separate from becoming best friends, and somehow Victor ends up in jail. We flash forward 10 years, Victor is escaping jail and he is hell-bent on going to find Eli. This book is very similar in a way. We still have the same main characters and things like that. I don't want to go into too much detail because second book in a series, but yeah. The next book that I picked up was on Scribd, and that was Sweet and Bitter Magic by Adrian Tooley. This is a new, I think, indie fantasy romance book where we have two main characters, Ren and Tasman. Ren is just a normal girl who is caring for her very ill father. Then we have our second main character, Tasman, who is a witch. Tasman has been kicked out of the witch academy for doing something very, 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 very bad, and the punishment for that is that she is cursed to no longer be able to love. So she cannot love anything, even in the most simplest sense of enjoying a sunset. She does not have the ability to do that. So what she does in order to feel something is that she takes love from other people as a payment of, you know, giving healing potions and things like that. All of a sudden, the town is struck with a plague, and Tasman has sort of been blamed for it, but they discover that it is the work of a dark witch. Ren is terrified that her father is going to succumb to the plague and goes to Tasman for help, and in doing so discovers that the Witch Academy has called for all of the witches to help find this dark witch who is, you know, doing the plague stuff. And so they team together, but Tasman has a little catch, and that is if they discover who the witch is and they find out who it is and everything, Ren has to pay her with the love of her father. I really enjoyed this one. It was a quick, really fun read. I ended up really enjoying how the relationship bloomed between the two main characters. This is sapphic romance as well, so that was really interesting to read. I ended up giving this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, I ended up reading another book from Scribd, and that was Ace of Spades by Fredia Abeki. I'm not going to say the rest of it because I really don't want to pronounce it wrong. This is meant to be a sort of Gossip Girl meets Pretty Little Liars meets Get Out, I think. I didn't really enjoy this one. I found it very boring. In this we have two main characters, Chiameka and Devon, I think is how his name is. I want to say that's his name. They go to this really prestigious Ivy League white school, and they are the two black kids. They are the only two black kids in this entire school. One day a text message gets sent out by this person called Aces that sort of reveals a very, very, very personal secret of Devon's, and it ends up spurring this whole thing where a lot of secrets about Chiameka and Devon are released into the public, and it is just this crazy ride about trying to figure out who's doing this and why, and so on and so forth. I really didn't enjoy this. I didn't feel like it was paced very well. The ending was really, really rushed, and the reason behind the secrets being released was just not... I just don't know. So yeah, I think I gave this one a 2 out of 5, 3 out of 5. I'm not entirely too sure. I really didn't enjoy it all that much. Yeah, sorry. Next we have Monstrous Volume 1 by, oh gosh, I don't know how to pronounce this name, Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I'm really sorry if I pronounced that wrong. This is a graphic novel. This is a fantasy, possibly. It's very interesting. So we have our main character who has this sort of demon thing inside of her, and that's pretty much all I can think of. It's very difficult to try and describe what it is to you. It was okay. It was definitely difficult to read. I think if I had a physical copy, it would have been better for me to be able to read it. It was difficult to try and read it through, like, digitally on my iPad, because I had to keep zooming in on different phrases and things like that. I am interested, but at the same time, I'm not, like, dying to read the next one, if that makes sense. The art in this is very nice. It's also very, very graphic, and there is actually a lot of nudity in this. So do be warned, if you are thinking about picking it up, I would definitely say 16 and up. Alright, so those are all the books that I read for July. August was a bit of a smaller month, thank goodness. So the first one that I finished for August was in fact Skyward by Brandon Sanderson. This was a pullover from July. This is a sci-fi YA where we follow our main character Spencer, who has been dealing with the aftermath of her father deserting in the midst of a battle against the aliens that attack their planet. Spencer's family has been labeled as like traitors and things like that, so they are struggling really badly, and Spencer is hell-bent on trying to make sure that people change their opinions, and so she enlists into the pilot flight academy so she can become a pilot like her father and help to defend their planet against the aliens, the Krell. And in doing so, she discovers a whole bunch of different things about her father and also about herself and about the Krell, and it was just a really exciting book to read. It did sort of lag a little bit in the middle. It didn't really make all that much sense to me, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars, and I am excited to see where it goes. The next book that I finished was a Kindle read, and that was To Kill a Kingdom by Alexandra Christo. This was a Little Mermaid retelling, which I really enjoyed. I had a lot of fun reading this. We have our main character, whose name I have just forgotten. Lyra? I can't exactly remember how to pronounce it. She is a siren, and in order to like keep living, sirens must eat the heart of a human. Lyra is the princess of the sirens, and so when she was younger, her mother made sure she only ever killed princes in order to feed, I guess. I don't know where that was going. And so she is hell-bent on sort of killing this prince. And then we have our other main character, who is in fact the prince. I can't exactly remember what his name is. Eladon, I think is how you pronounce it. I'm not entirely too sure. And he is trying to find this second half of like the sirens' magic so that he is able to put a stop to the sirens and the war and everything like that. I really enjoyed this. It was a fun, really nice, interesting read. I enjoyed the take on the retelling. It was just really fun and enjoyable. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. Next, we have a book that is definitely a favorite of mine for the year. The House in the Cerulean Sea by TJ Klune. I love this book so much. I enjoyed the characters, the found family trope, the atmosphere, the writing, just everything in this book was amazing. I tabbed this to heck, as you can probably see. I really, really enjoyed it. It was so much fun. So in this book we have our main character, Linus Baker. He works for the Department of Magical Youths, where he travels to different orphanages that house magical youths and make sure that the orphanages are, you know, looking after the children well, that they are safe and clean and healthy and everything like that. One day, Linus Baker gets called up to extremely upper management and is sent to the orphanage in an island. Don't exactly remember what the name of the island was, and he needs to see if the orphanage is doing its job or if it should be shut down. When he is there, he meets 6 children and their caretaker, Arthur Paranesis, and it is just a magical, amazing story. I love the children in this. They are incredible. And if you are looking for a like sweet and just wholesome, amazing time. Read this book. It is just amazing. I absolutely loved everything about this book, honestly. Just so good, so good. 5 out of 5 stars. And the last book that I managed to finish on the very last day of August was Dance with a Fae Prince by Elise Cover. This was originally called Dance with a Fae Rogue. This is part of her Married in Magic series, where I don't know if it's going to be retellings or not, but they're all sort of stuck in the same world. This one follows our main character. Oh, fudge, her name. I've forgotten her name. Katria. We follow our main character, Katria, who sort of has a very Cinderella-esque beginning where her father remarries and the stepmother is horrible. They treat her really, really badly. The father dies or disappears, and Katria is then the one who has to look after everything. She is the slave, and one day Katria ends up getting sold to some random lord and is married off to him in payment for money so that her stepmother and her stepsisters are able to live comfortably. So while she is living with this lord, she has never seen him because he refuses to let her look at him. She has to be blindfolded, or she has to have her back turned to him the entire time. And yeah, this was an interesting read. I enjoyed it. I had fun. I definitely think I enjoyed the Deal with the Elf King more than this one, but I am interested to see where the stories are going to go, because this one did mention quite a few aspects of the Deal with the Elf King sort of bits and pieces, so you definitely know that they are connected to each other. Not that you have to read the first one at all. It's just like cool little Easter eggs that you get to see. Yeah, this one definitely delved more into the magic system of the world. In this world, the elves and the fae and everything else, the vampires and I think witches possibly, they all have their own sort of way of dealing magic. And in this one, fae deal their magic through rituals. So this was definitely interesting to see more of that involved. And yeah, I gave this one a 3 out of 5 stars. Very, very low 3 stars. More so like a 2.75 if I'm honest. But nonetheless, yeah. So those are all the books that I've read. Oh snap, this was a long video to film, and I'm sorry if I stumbled over my words a lot or if I got the synopsises wrong. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Give it a thumbs up if you did. Let me know what some of the books are that you read down below in the comments. I would love to check them out. Let me know if you have read any of these ones yourselves. I would be interested to see and hear your thoughts. If you would like to see more of me, then do be sure to check out my Instagram and Twitter. Links are always down in the description box. I stumbled over my words again. Gosh, I need another coffee. And if you would like to see more of me, then do be sure to hit that red subscribe button so you can be notified every time I upload. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you guys in another video later on.